Kiraitu Murungi, the senator for Meru at that time, made a proposal that why don't we make an amendment to the Parliamentary Service Commission Act so that we can have subcommittees of the Parliamentary Service Commission, one that looks at matters and interests of the Senate, and another one that looks at matters and interests of the National Assembly. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, that proposal did not see the light of day. We went ahead and attempted to come up with regulations under the PFM Act to ensure that there was some support, there was some allocation for senators to carry out proactive oversight. The argument then, Mr. Speaker, was that when you employ somebody to deliver a duty, you have an obligation to provide them with the tools of trade. You cannot employ a teacher, expect the teacher to teach your children, and expect the same teacher to buy the chalk that they're going to use to teach those children. And so that was the argument that over a long period of time gave rise to the Senate Oversight Fund. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate our colleagues who sit in the Parliamentary Service Commission and the leadership of this House that ultimately, even though the figures are not sufficient, but ultimately we now have certain resources that can enable senators to carry out proactive oversight. What I want to request Senator Ledama and Senator Kisang is that the oversight fund and arrangements came after you had thought through this piece of legislation. Is there a way you can tie the current reality to your original intentions so that as much as this is an oversight and accountability bill, it ties neatly with the oversight arrangements that currently exist in the Senate? I think that is something that can be done, and amendments can be proposed at the next stage of reading. Mr. Speaker, another contentious matter in this bill that we have looked at previously is a proposal that every county should, when this matter came before my committee and doing public participation on it, and happy to sit in a church. In some areas, people would be happy to sit in a CDF hall, and so making it mandatory for every in a CDF hall, and so making it mandatory for every county. I got the gist of his argument. Him being a man who has lived in the United States. In the United States, there's something called a town hall, and that town hall exists almost in every village. In fact, the model of administration in many of the areas where we are drawing our version of civilization from, you would find that every local community, there would be a church, there would be a post office, there would be a town hall, of course there would be a school, of course there would be a hospital, and if it was British, there would be a pub. Because those are areas that they form the soul and the spirit of a town, a city, or a village. And so perhaps what Senator Ledama is advancing is that we must have the equivalence of town halls, public spaces that are not owned by anybody but owned by the same members of public, which then can be used as impartial fora and impartial places for public participation. If that is the intention, Mr. Speaker, I do support that we must make sure that our counties, there's a town hall in every county, and to the greatest extent possible, we provide facilities at the ward level. Of course, we must also ask ourselves the question whether we have built enough hospitals, we have built enough ECD centers, whether we have built enough youth polytechnics, and some of these public participation facilities perhaps can be located or situated within some of these facilities. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of oversight, and the majority leader has given his manifesto on how it ought to look like. And I think that we generally agree that there must be a different way of doing things. Mr. Speaker, it is my conviction that every member of this House is involved in oversight in one way or the other, because every member of this House belongs to one committee or the other. Mr. Speaker, if you belong to the Agriculture Committee, you should be able to ask questions around agricultural policies and practices. If you belong to the Education Committee, you should be able to raise questions on ECD implementation and the state of youth polytechnics in your respective counties. If you belong to the Roads Committee and all the other committees. So, Mr. Speaker, it is not only the public accounts and the public investment committees that carry out oversight. In fact, Mr. Speaker, our mandate is extremely limited because our mandate is post-mortem. And it is not post-mortem by standing order. It is post-mortem by constitution, by Public Audit Act, by parliamentary practice and parliamentary tradition. I want to challenge the chairs of the other committees in this House. Please do not be afraid. I have seen committees like the Roads Committee demanding accountability on utilization of the Roads Maintenance Levy Fund. We did that in the last parliament, and governors ran to court to stop us. I have seen the Education Committee ask questions around the state of ECD centers. I have seen all the other committees. When we're in the Agriculture Committee with Senator Murango, we used to consistently and regularly ask questions about implementation of county government policies. So we must look at all of us collectively as overseers of affairs and practices and operations in county governments. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the individual role of a senator in terms of oversight, and I hope that Senator Mtata would one day be able to tell us the long and short of the decision that was made in the matter between him and Busia County government. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is being reported that oversight responsibility is not individual, it is institutional. Mr. Speaker, if it was institutional, then why do we have an oversight fund for respective senators? It means that even that oversight fund is unconstitutional. Mr. Speaker, we must make sure that we've got the right jurisprudence, because our partners in county governments would hide behind that, so that if you went to your county to ask for certain information, certain records, under the freedom of access to information, which is part of the Bill of Rights in this Constitution, you are told that we can only release documents if they've been signed by the clerk of the Senate. There is nowhere, I do not think that there is any parliamentary system or any parliamentary practice where an elected member, a person elected by those residents, constituents, is barred, is muzzled from asking questions on behalf of the people, because our job is representation. Now, representation, you represent the people who elected you. Of course, when you come to the Senate, you represent the entire nation, but you've got a primary responsibility to represent the people who elected you, and that means you must ask questions. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to make sure that, earlier on, I'd already commended our two colleagues who are in the Parliamentary Service Commission, the ones who are consulting Senator Mogeni and Senator Joyce Korir, that at the end of the, at least we finally saw a little bit of resources for the Senate Oversight Fund. But we need to be more innovative to ensure that more of the money goes into activities that make sense in the eyes of our people, rather than into consultancies and into administrative and bureaucratic expenses that then reduce whatever is available for a senator to be able to walk around. Mr. Speaker, it has also been suggested that members of the public feel a sense of fatigue, that Senate is always asking the tough questions, but then there is no action. Mr. Speaker, it is for this reason we invited the EACC step of the ODPP, saying that in many cases they are that in many cases they have made recommendations for prosecution, and the ODPP has invoked their constitutional power and decided not to pursue prosecution of cases. And in some cases, Mr. Speaker, the ODPP initiates prosecution and along the way drops prosecution, does annul prosecution, and you see the Constitution gives them that power. However, Mr. Speaker, we were informed by Senior Counsel Okongo Mogeni that under the ODPP Act, Parliament has the power to demand a report on any matter from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. Mr. Speaker, we are going to invoke that power, and we are going to invite the ODPP, and we are going to ask for an explanation on some of the issues that have been cited as contentious, or issues that have been withdrawn where the evidence prima facie exists and where some actions appear as if they're done out of political expedience. And so we must also ensure that our partners, implementing partners, also do the right thing. I wish this parliament had a police cell somewhere where we could issue orders directly to detain persons who perhaps demonstrate contempt to parliament or who lie under oath. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people who come before parliament lie through their teeth. I remember one governor launching a county headquarters and sitting on the chair and starting operations. And when he came before my committee, under oath, he swore that facility is not working. And yet, we had information in the public domain to that effect. I wish we had the power to deal with those things instantly. I wish that the amendments by Senator Osotsi could see the light of day so that we can strengthen the penalties and the consequences of non-cooperation or contempt of parliament or lying before parliament. Mr. Speaker, I conclude by recommending that this House passes this bill, but let us also not forget to strengthen our small brothers in the counties called the county assemblies. Because at Senate, we can talk of oversight, we can talk public participation, but at the micro level, that exercise is conducted by members of the county assembly. I am glad we have provided them with financial autonomy, and so that should allow them to budget, so that every bill that comes before them, they can sponsor public participation without going to the executive to sponsor that exercise. So let's strengthen our county assemblies, let's strengthen the institutions, and let's live true to some of the ideals that the late Raila Odinga had espoused when he came before this House. Devolution is work in progress. It is not possible to get it right in a period of 15 years. And so now more than ever, we as members of the Senate, we must make sure that we are actively involved in oversight. Oversight is not for pack and pick. Every member of this Senate, be it delegated legislation, be it rules, powers, and privileges, if you sit in a committee of the Senate, you are an overseer at an institutional level, but also individually, you've got a responsibility to go back to your county to oversight. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support.
Thank you, Senator Samson Cherargei.